Welcome back. I would tell you what number of the series this is, but apparently I have no idea what I'm talking about because I mislabeled the last two or something like that. But regardless of that, this is the Useless Pokemon Shower Thoughts series. If you don't know what's going on, I'm essentially talking about every single Pokemon. And for every single one, I'm going over some random, weird, obscure, strange shower thought or realization I had about all of them. And this could range from many things. Some of them are pretty simple, some of them are just unhinged. But in the last video, I got a little bit into the Unova region. This video's gonna go a lot farther into the Unova region. Anyway, we left off with Oshawott. Its name can be broken down into two acronyms. The first half of its name is OSHA, which is a company or something, I don't know. It's this, but if you look at their logo, they have that symbol in it that sort of looks like a wave, and that of course ties into Oshawott being a water type. But then the second half of its name is Watt, not Watt with an A, Watt with an O, which is apparently a radio station broadcasted in New York. But get this, in New York, it's specifically broadcasted in a place called Watertown. Water like Oshawott's water type. Duat. Its Japanese name comes from words meaning two and long sword. And if you put that together, you would think, okay, it has two long swords. But it doesn't. It has two small shells. Samurott. It is the only Unova starter to not have ultra rares in its regular form, but regardless of that, it still has the most ultra rares of the Unova starters, and that's just because of its Hisuian form having 8 ultra rare cards. It's also the only one of the three without a shiny card. Patrat. Its design is based on a meerkat and also a prairie dog, which first of all, those are two separate things, and they're also not dogs or cats despite their names. Second of all, its English name contains rat and its Japanese name contains mouse, but in addition to that, mice and rats are also not the same thing, nor are they related, or they might be related to, but they're not the same thing as meerkats or prairie dogs or regular cats or regular dogs or each other. So all these 6 different animals, they're not the same thing, if that made any sense. Anyway, Watchog. It has some similarities to Greedent, being that they're both pure normal-type regional mammals, or even regional rodents, I guess you would call them, in the second stage of their lines, with fur that is more red in color than their pre-evolutions, who had more brown fur, and they also stored berries in their cheek pouches. Lillipup. It and Lilligint are the only Pokemon to start with Lilly, as in Lilli, and both of them are from Unova, but they're completely unrelated from each other. Herdier. Its face resembles the TCG Undaunted logo. Stoutland. Its Japanese name is called Moo Land. Now, obviously, it starts with moo, so that sort of calls to mind maybe a cow, because they say moo, and if you think of Unova specifically, that calls to mind Bouffalant, because it's just about the most bovine Pokemon from Unova. It's also a pure normal type like Stoutland is, and the first and last syllables of Stoutland's Japanese name Mooland are kind of similar to the first and last syllables of Bouffalant's English name. You have moo and boo, and then land and lant. Purloin. Its dex number is 509. The inverse of that is 905. And considering that's over 400 away, or almost 400 away in the dex, you would think that it would have no relation to Purloin, or just no relation to the Unova region, but it actually does, because number 905 is Enamorous, which was added in Hisui, but it was actually added to complete a quartet for the Unova region, being the, whatever you call those guys, forces of nature, I think. Anyway, Liepard. Both it and its pre-evolution share a category name with a single other Pokemon each, and both of them are from Galar. Purloin shares it with Morgrem, and Liepard shares it with Galarian Articuno. Pansage. Pansage and Simisage are the only one of the 6 Unova monkeys to have monkey in their category name, and the only one to have its type in its name is Pansage. Simisage. It is the only pure grass type to evolve from a pure grass type by the Leaf Stone. Pansear. Its tail is shaped like a water drop, which is ironic because it's weak to water, and this also applies to Panpour because its tail is shaped like a clover and it's weak to grass. Simisear. The red pattern on its stomach resembles Darkrai's jaw, Paired with the white fluff on its neck that sort of resembles Darkrai's hair, if you continue the Darkrai relation. Panpour. It is the only one of the monkeys to actually obey the concept of the evil monkeys trope that they're based on, because Panpour is see no evil, and it actually has its eyes closed, so it is seeing no evil, but Panseer is hear no evil, but it's holding its hand up to its ear to listen, so it's breaking that rule, and then Pansage is speak no evil, but it's clearly speaking in its official art. Simipour. Its shirt, or just the design of its fur that looks like a shirt, sort of resembles the Freeze badge, which is a badge from Unova, which is the region it came out in, although they're two different types. Simipour is obviously a water type, and the Freeze badge is for an ice type gym. Munna. It is the only Pokemon to evolve by or from the Moonstone to have the word moon in its name, or at least the sound of the word moon, because it's spelled M-U-N in its name. Musharna. It has the biped deck shape, despite seeming quadruped and being based on a quadruped, and its pre-evolution being quadruped. But this may imply that when Musharna isn't floating in the air curled up like that, and it actually walks, it walks on its hind legs, which would look kind of weird. Pidove. Its Japanese name translated is the same as its category name. Tranquil. It is the only member of its line to not be named after a bird, and the only one with a double letter, being the L. Unpheasant. The female has only appeared in 1 TCG card, while the male has appeared in 8. Blitzel. The inverse of its dex number is Delibird's dex number. If you think of Delibird and Blitzel together, you can sort of think of them as Santa and a reindeer, because Delibird is based on Santa, and while Blitzel isn't based on a reindeer, just in the context, you could think of it as one. And since its name is literally Blitzel, that is very similar to one of the reindeer being Blitzin. Zebstrika. The letters of the word zebra appear in that order in its name, though they're separated by some letters. Roggenrola. The deck says it compares itself with Carbink to see who has a harder body, but considering Carbink has diamonds in it, it's kind of just automatically harder, because that is pretty much the hardest material, so Roggenrola shouldn't really stand a chance, hypothetically. Boldore. It and Ferrothorn are the only Pokemon of the multiplied body shape according to the decks. They're the only ones with less than 4 limbs or appendages. What's weird about that is that they both have 3 legs and are both from Unova. Gigalith. Its footprint resembles the moment Deoxys's tentacles emerge from the triangle asteroid thing in the Delta episode cutscene. Woobat. Its eye tufts resemble W's and its nose resembles an O. Together that spells wow. Swoobat. It's based on the Honduran white bat, although the color scheme of that actual animal is much better reflected in its shiny form. Drillbur. It is the mole Pokemon. It's a pure ground type and evolves into a ground steel type. This is sort of reminiscent of Diglett, because Diglett is called the mole Pokemon, and it was pure ground at first, but then in Alola it got a ground steel Alolan form. Excadrill. The art card of it in Temporal Forces from the TCG has an Excadrill emerging from a cave ceiling. There's also a card called Fossil Excavator, which also has EXCA or Exca in its name, and that card also happens to feature a mole Pokemon popping from a cave ceiling being Diglett. Audino. Its eyes are blue, but turquoise when shiny, similar to Latios's body in its regular and shiny form respectively. Mega Audino's eyes are red, but yellow when shiny, which is similar to Latios's body in its regular and shiny form. Timber. Both it and Kamala hold a piece of wood. They both have 2 consecutive K's in their Japanese names followed by an O. Girder. If its afro was red like its nose, it would look like Flint from the previous generation. Or just Ronald McDonald, I guess, because of its red nose. Conkeldurr. As it has many similarities to Machamp, the number of items it holds is twice as many as its pre-evolution, just like Machamp has twice as many arms as its pre-evolution. Timepole. Both it and Tynamo are base stage aquatic Pokemon in 3-stage lines from Unova starting with TY. Palpitoad. It shares its category with Vibrava. Subtracting their dex numbers gets Gligar's dex number, and all 3 are dual ground types. Seismitoad. Like Mega Swampert, which is another Pokemon of the same type combo as it, there are many reasons it could also be fighting type instead. It has strong big arms like Mega Swampert, it learns many fighting type attacks, Seismic Toss is literally a fighting type attack, and its name is Seismitoad. And also, its only ultra rare is in the set Furious Fists, which is based around fighting types. Throw. Whether or not it was intentional, its nose and unibrow together resemble a T, which is its first letter in its name. And then Sock, going with Throw's pattern, its face symbol sort of resembles an S, though it's kind of corrupted a bit, or like tilted and flipped. Swaddle. Its mouth, excluding the teeth, resembles Pac-Man, and with the teeth, it sort of resembles a piranha plant's head. Swadloon. Though its mouth is different from its pre-evolutions, it sort of maintains the Pac-Man shape in its body design, as I mentioned of Swaddle, being on the leaves on its head. Leavanny. Its face is very similar to that of Whimsicott, and both of them are Gen 5 grass types. Venipede. It's based on a centipede, which actually isn't an insect apparently, but it's a bug type regardless of that. Also, unlike insects or centipedes, it has 8 legs, which is more akin to an arachnid. Whirlipede. For some reason they made up a word for its category name, instead of calling it just the centipede Pokemon. The word they used is called Curlipede, which happens to rhyme with its name, so perhaps that was a scrapped name that they thought of at one point to call it Curlipede instead of Whirlipede. Scolipede. The scoli in its name can be rearranged into coils, which relates to its pre-evolution because it coils into a wheel thing. Cottony. It probably makes the least sense of the Sunstone evolutions, though it does have a star shape on its back, and its shiny color is similar to the color of the Sunstone. Whimsicott. It has a very similar concept to both Eldegoss and Jumpluff. All 3 are fully evolved grass types, but their specific type combos are all different, being Grass Fairy, Grass, and Grass Flying. Petalil. It's essentially a predecessor to Smoliv. Both of them are small, simple design grass types with a slang word meaning small in their names that was relevant at the time, Petalil's being Lil, and Smoliv's being Smol. Lilligant. It evolves by a sunstone. It has a crown-like shape on its head, and if you didn't know, the word corona means crown, but it's also a part of the sun, so that sort of completes the relation there, because it means both crown and sun, and as I said, evolves by sunstone and has a crown on its head. Although this definitely wasn't intentional, because everything I'm talking about here is just a big stretch, and it's meant to be that way, and that's the point of this. Anyway, Basculin. Considering Basculegion's forms are red, and then the other one is bluish, more so white, but just go with me here, we're going to call it blue. The white striped form seems kinda useless. They should have just kept the red and blue regular forms it had if Basculegion's forms are going to be red and blue, although technically that is its gender variance, so maybe not. Sandile. Unlike Fuecoco, who is bipedal and becomes quadruped and is based on crocodiles or alligators, Sandile is quadruped but becomes bipedal. Krokorok. Its Japanese name is similar to Weavile's English name, and both are dual dark types. Crocodile. Its name may have been inspired by King K. Rool from Donkey Kong, since it is a crocodile and its name starts with K, when in reality the word it's based on would be C, or start with C, because it's named after Crook, and King K. Rool is cruel, but they changed both to a K. Interestingly, the next Pokemons to appear in the Pokédex after Crocodile are Darumaka and Darmanitan, which would fit in with the Donkey Kong relation here as Diddy Kong and Donkey Kong, since they're based on gorillas. Darumaka. Everything about its Galarian form is pretty much the inverse of its regular form. It's ice type instead of fire, it frowns instead of smiling, it stands on the opposite foot, its belly patterns are sideways instead of vertical, its arms obscure its hands instead of vice versa, and its arms are not overlapping its body. Darmanitan. Going back to that Donkey Kong relation I mentioned of Crocodile, its regular form can be seen as DK, and the Galar form can be seen as the Super Guide DK because of the white fur, and Zen Mode is DK's stone statue from Mario Party. Maractus. Its English and Japanese name have the same Marak suffix, but the Japanese name continues with Achi, spelled A-C-C-H-I, which happens to be the exact name of a Kirby enemy, also debuting in a DS game like Maractus did. Dwebble. It's called the Rock Inn Pokemon, and Crustle is the Stone Home Pokemon, even though, realistically, I would imagine an inn is bigger than a home, because a home is for like one person, and an inn can fit many people, so it should be the other way around, because Crustle is the bigger one, so it should be the Rock Inn. Crustle. Its Japanese name means Rock Palace. which is more similar to its English category Stone Home than its English name. Scraggy. If you look at its nostrils as if they were eyes paired with its mouth, it sort of resembles Snowrunt's face. Scrafty. Expanding on Scraggy's relation to Snowrunt, when Scrafty's hood is up, it sort of resembles Glalie, and both of them are evolved forms. Sigilith. It resembles Tiki Tax from Donkey Kong, which continues the Donkey Kong relation that I've been making multiple times now, and specifically from the Tiki Tax tribe from Donkey Kong Country Returns. It most similarly resembles the Tiki Buzzes, which are the flying ones. Yamask. Its Galarian form has one extra tier, just like it also has one extra type from regular Yamask. Coffagrigus. Like Goldengo, it is a ghost type made of gold, but it isn't steel type like Goldengo is. Tortuga. Its Japanese name makes more sense since it actually references the extinct animal it's based on. Its English name literally just means turtle. Caracosta. Its GX card has the Stone Age GX attack, though the time Archelon existed did not overlap with the Stone Age, at least from what the internet told me. Archon. Its name is more similar to Archelon, which is the basis for the other Unova fossils being Caracosta and Tortuga. It's more close to that word than it is to Archaeopteryx, which is the animal that it's actually based on. Archaeops. The only letter in its English name missing in its Japanese name is P. Now to make a little connection here, Pidgey, which is the first bird Pokemon to appear in the Pokédex, its name starts with P, which is the letter that I just mentioned is omitted from Archaeops' Japanese name, and Archaeops' category is literally called the first bird Pokemon. Trubbish. Swalot's category fits Trubbish arguably better than Swalot itself. Garbodor. Its Gigantamax form calls to mind Dust Buddies from Mario Party DS. Garbodor's Japanese name has dust in it, and its GMAX form has oversized toys in it that call to mind how the characters in Mario Party DS have shrunken and everything else appears big. Zora. Considering its Hisuian form's resentful nature and the fact that its regular form is Dark type, the Hisuian form would make a lot more sense to be Ghost Dark than Ghost Normal, but it's obvious that they just made it Ghost Normal because, there wasn't one at the time, so they had to do something. Zorark. The Zorark and Legendary Pokemon card, which exists for some reason, features 3 legendaries, 2 of which are from the Hoenn trio, while the other one is Dialga instead of Kyogre for some reason. You'd think if they were going to do 2 Hoenn legends, they would have just completed the trio. Or if they were going to do multiple different gens, have Dialga, Groudon, and Ho-Oh or something. Minccino. It probably makes the least sense of all Pokemon to evolve by Shiny Stone. It is also the only one to evolve by Shiny Stone that has no relations to Flower or isn't Fairy type. Cinccino. They were designed as parallels to Clefairy and Clefable, but didn't get the Fairy type added in Gen 6 like Clefable and Clefairy did. Gothita. The Dex calls them babies, though they aren't actual baby Pokemon. Gothorita. Each of its head bumps resembles Gothita's head upside down. Gothitelle. It is the only one in its line that doesn't share the last 4 letters of its name with another Pokemon. Gothita shares it with Makuhita, Gothorita shares it with Chikorita, and Gothitelle shares it with nothing. Solosis. Its Japanese name sort of fits in with Nidoran's name, or it's like it could be Nidoran's name, because it ends in Ran, like Nidoran's name already does, and it has the prefix uni, like unicorn, and Nidoran has a single horn. Duosian. Despite its English name containing duo and its Japanese name containing double, it doesn't actually have 2 heads or 2 bodies. Reuniclus. Its dex number plus or minus the level it evolves from Duosian equals the number of a pure fighting type from Unova, being Throw and Mienshao. Ducklet. It is a water-type duck Pokemon that has a blue patch of feathers on its lower half, while Quaxly is a water-type duck with a blue patch of feathers on its upper half. Ducklet would look even more like Quaxly if it had Swana's colors, because its upper half would be white. Swana. Water is never mentioned in its dex entries, though it is in Ducklet's dex entries. Swana also looks even less like a water type than Ducklet does, just because it loses a lot of the blue coloration. Vanillite. Its line should have become part fairy in Gen 6, and this is because, first of all, at the time, there was never an ice fairy type, and to this day, the only ice fairy type is a regional form, and it's just one. Also, a lot of dessert and sweets-based Pokemon are fairy types, so it just would have made sense. Vanillish. Many Pokemon have Ice in their category name, but Vanillish is the only one with Icy in its category name. Vanillux. The straw-like appendage on its head calls to mind a beverage. Its Japanese name is Bai Vanilla, calling to mind the drink, Bai. Deerling. Its winter form would have been the base form if they didn't make the 4 Deerlings separately, since it's brown like all 4 Sawsbucks are. Sawsbuck. Its winter form is the only one whose unique details aren't the same color as its respective Deerling's fur. You'd think the winter Deerling would be white then, because winter Sawsbuck has white features. Emolga. It started the trend of dual-type Pika clones. Every gen since Gen 5 has had one, and none share a second type so far. Emolga's part flying, Dedenne's part fairy, Togedemaru's part steel, Morpeko's part dark, and the Palmeline's part fighting. Carablast. It is Shelmet's enemy despite also being evolution counterparts and having a sort of symbiotic relationship. Escavalier. It has a different deck shape from Carablast despite technically being just a Carablast in armor, so it should have the same deck shape because the armor isn't really its body. Fungus. It is a sort of successor to Voltorb and shares a type with Voltorb's eventual regional form. Amoonguss. It is one of only 3 Pokemon of Moo in its name. Surprisingly, none of those Pokemon are based on cows. Frillish. The dex mentions nothing supporting its ghost type, but a lot suggesting it would be poison's type instead. Jellicent. Its entries are a bit more supportive of the fact that it's ghost type, and strangely just completely ignore the fact that all of those mentionings of poison for Frillish. Like, it does not mention poison at all, as if Frillish just never mentioned it. Alomomoa. Its English name has Mom in it, and its Japanese name has Mama, yet it is only 50% female and not 100%. Joltik. It has half the legs that a regular tick would have, and it's based on a tick, by the way, and twice as many eyes. Or at least from what I could find, ticks have 0 eyes, or they have 2 eyes. I couldn't really find a concise answer. It's like some ticks have 0, some have 2, but Joltik has 4, so either way it's wrong. Galvantula. It has 2 more eyes and 2 more legs than Joltik, but that's still not enough to even be considered an arachnid, which it's based on because they have 8 legs and it only has 6. Ferroseed. It has the Iron Barbs ability, even though the barbs on its body seem to be the only part of it that are plant matter and not metal. Ferrothorn. It's shiny, the metal it's made of might be brass, and the reason I say that is because the dex says that its body is made of steel, and steel is an alloy metal with a silvery color, but that only really applies to its regular form, because its shiny is golden. So I picked brass because, like steel, it's also an alloy metal. And to expand on that, the plant portion of its shiny form might be made of wineberry vines, because those are red, spiky vines. Clink. It is the only Pokemon with the multiple body shape to consist of 2 entirely identical bodies and nothing else. Doublade is 2 identical bodies, but it has a centerpiece, so it is more than just the 2 bodies connected. And Binacle is also 2 identical bodies, but it has the rock connecting them. Clang. It and Klinklang make less sense than Klink to be considered a multiple body Pokemon, since they only have 1 face and are not described as being fusions. Klinklang. The dex mentions its red core, which remains true even in its shiny form, because in its shiny form the red core is the only thing that doesn't change. Tynamo. The fact that its line is based on fish and is often seen in water, yet aren't water type, may have been intentional, because they may have been intentionally trying to make a Pokemon of no weaknesses by giving them the pure electric type and then the levitate ability. Electric. The Blueberry Dex photo shows it with Galvantula. Both of them are known as the Ella, followed by an animal named Pokemon in their categories, and are both from Unova. Electros. The dex gives it the fins body shape, even though its fins are more so arms, especially compared to its pre-evolution, so technically it could also have the head and arms body shape. It also has 2 small feet fins, but it could fit better in head and arms because Dracloak is also in the head and arms category, despite also having 2 tiny feet fins, like Electrok does. LGM. Its body color paired with the 3 glowing circles on its hands make the SNES button colors. Behem. Its eye shape resembles gum from Scribblenauts. Litwick. There are 3 Pokemon starting with the word Lit. All of the Pokemon containing Lit in their name appear consecutively from one gen to the next. They are all fire types, and Litwick is the first of them. Litwick, then Litleo, then Litten. Lampent. It has some similarities to Wisp from Animal Crossing. Both of them are ghost, with relations to lamps, albeit completely different meanings of the word lamp, a magic lamp, and a literal lamp. Lampent's flame resembles Wisp's spirit pieces in ACNH, and both of them have arms but no legs, and wear hats of some sorts. At least Lampent just looks like it's wearing a hat with the top of its body. Chandelure. Its Japanese name is almost identical to Candela, which is a trainer from Pokemon Go. She has used a different ghost fire type before, but it wasn't Chandelure. Axew. Its name sounds like a pun on Achu, though it isn't, because there is actually a different Pokemon from Unova whose name is a pun on Achu, which is Cubchoo. Fracture. Axew is known as the Tusk Pokemon, while Fracture is known as the Axe Jaw Pokemon, but technically Fracture should be called the Axe Tusk Pokemon, because teeth and tusks are separate bones from the jaw, and Fracture's axe-like structures are its tusks like Axew's, not its jaw. Haxorus. It has similar metallic armor to Kommo-o, and is a similar warrior/knight dragon-like design, so you'd think they'd both be the same type, but they're not. But then you'd also think Haxorus should at least be part steel or part fighting or something, but it's also not. Cubchoo. The only other Pokemon starting with Cub is Cubone. Their Japanese names both start with K, and they're both pure-type base stages from two-stage lines. Beartic. Its tail, as seen in the card in Lost Thunder, resembles Xurkitree's head. Also, its sprite from Pokemon Conquest looks like Rigby screaming. I just thought I'd point that out because that's really important. Cryogonal. Like Glalie, it is a pure ice type with the head shape. Regice is from Gen 3 like Glalie, and Cryogonal is required to get Regice in the Sword and Shield DLC. Cryogonal's number minus Regice's number is 237. Episode 237 of the anime is called As Cold as Price, which is a pun on As Cold as Ice, which calls to mind how all three of the Pokemon I just mentioned are ice types. Shelmet. Carablast only appears in a single Shelmet card, but Shelmet doesn't appear in any Carablast cards. Excelgor. The deck suggests it would be a poison type, which would make it fit in with Escavalier better, as then they would both be gaining a type upon evolution. Stunfisk. Fungus is a Pokeball mimic from Gen 5, and Stunfisk is also from Gen 5, and it went on to get a regional form that is also a Pokeball mimic. Mienfoo. It is a fighting type with Fu in its name, so it is quite literally a Fu fighter. Mienshao. Its Japanese name Kojondo is like a shortening of Koji Kondo, who composed for many Nintendo games, but I don't think Pokemon, actually. Druddigon. It could also be a ground type or a rock type, instead of just a pure dragon type, since first of all, it lives in caves, has rock-like skin, and the other Pokemon known as the cave Pokemon is Gabite, who is a ground type. There is also the cavern Pokemon, Terrakion, which is a rock type. Golett. There are 4 Pokemon ending in LETT. 2 of them are water type, and 2 of them are ground type. Golett is the latter of the 2 ground type ones. Golurk. Its Japanese name Golug, pronounced backwards, is Gulag. Not that that means anything, but that's a word, so there you go. Pawniard. The dex implies it can fix its blades if they are dulled, but straight up dies if they break, which seems kind of odd, because that's it. Like, is its life force condensed into it, but only if they break and not just get worn down? That's kind of the same thing, but okay. Bisharp. Its name could be taken literally as bi-sharp, and still makes sense since it has 2 bladed arms and 2 blades on its torso, and bi-sharp, bi means 2, and sharp. You get the joke here. Bouffalant. Some dex entries mention it can derail a train. Its Primal Clash card has an attack called Derail. It also has the Sap Sipper ability in that card, which Bouffalant indeed does have in the games. Rufflet. Its head feather resembles the colors and pattern of Zangoose's arm. Braviary. They could have easily used a Sinnoh flying type as the fly Pokemon in Hisui. Like they could have used Staraptor or Gliscor or something, so it's weird that they used a random one from Unova instead. Volibee. The deck says it discards its bones when it evolves, even though it ends up just wearing bones anyway when it evolves, so I don't get that. Mandibuzz. The deck says they wear bones to attract males, even though males have never been found. But maybe this is because they killed all of the males and are wearing their bones. Heatmore. Its shiny form has slightly darker fire for some reason, but perhaps this is because it's burning different chemicals that could cause this change. The shinies may be burning radium or strontium, which makes a darker red flame, which is what it has, and the regular form may be burning calcium or lithium, which creates a brighter orange flame. Durant. Of all of the insectoid body shape Pokemon, it is the most similar to that dex shape. Thanks to actually having 6 legs, because some of the insectoid Pokemon don't have 6 legs, which doesn't make sense because insects have 6 legs, and it also has 2 antennae. Dino. The dex mentions its teeth, even though it is the only one in its line without teeth. Zweilous. Its Japanese name, Diehead, literally means 2 heads, and this could easily apply to various other Pokemon like Doduo, Binacle, Weezing, Cherubi, Vanillux, and Girafarig. Hydreigon. Though Bulbapedia doesn't mention it, I'm gonna mention it. Its Japanese name is Sazandora, and considering that ends in Dora, this sort of calls to mind King Ghidorah from Godzilla, which it is clearly based on because it has 3 heads and is a dragon like King Ghidorah. Larvesta. It is named after Vesta, the goddess of apparently hearth and home, and if you put those 2 words together, you get Hearthome, which is a city from Pokemon. Volcarona. It has a connection to the sun, and is very similar to Mothra from Godzilla. But to expand on that, this also reminds me of Mothron from Terraria, which is also based on Mothra from Godzilla, or at least looks like it, and also has a connection to the sun, being the fact that it's a boss, or like a mini-boss in the solar eclipse event. And the reason that's a weird connection is because, as far as I know, Mothra itself doesn't have any connection to the sun, but then these 2 spin-offs of it do. Cobalion. It is the only member of the Swords, including Keldeo, to have a different Japanese name from English. Terrakion. It is the only member of the quartet to not have an EX in a set based on Black and White 2. Virizion. Its front leg pattern resembles the wing from Super Mario Bros. Special. Its dex number is 640, calling to mind Mario 64 to continue that Mario connection. It's also called the Grassland Pokemon, and Grassland is a world in Mario Bros. 3. Tornadus. It is called the Cyclone Pokemon, but is named after a tornado. And tornadoes and cyclones are actually 2 different things. But perhaps its Therian form is the cyclone part of it, because the Arceus Dex entry says its Therian form crosses the ocean, and cyclones form over the ocean, while tornadoes form over land. Thundurus. It is similar to Lock of Thunder from Mario. Both of them are torsos emerging from clouds, have lightning powers, debuted in DS games, and are named after thunder. Reshiram. It has some similarities to Blaziken. Both of them are dual fire types, have long, bright-colored hair in 2 different locks. They have feathery, suspiciously placed patches of feather things. They have some basis in birds, have blue eyes, and have shinies that barely change from their regular colors. Zekrom. Its XY full art promo has Palkia and Latios in the background, which can both be caught in Omega Ruby, although Zekrom can't. It is caught in Alpha Sapphire. Also, Reshiram's full art XY promo just has Zekrom in it, so you'd think that Zekroms would have Reshiram in it and not 2 random other legendaries. Landorus. The Arceus Dex says it can fly across Hisui in mere hours, despite the fact that in that game you can pretty much just run across it in mere minutes. But this implies that the region is actually significantly larger than what it is seen in the game, which is, I guess, how most Pokemon games work. Kyurem. You can rearrange or just use the letters of its name to spell a corruption of the word Mercury, although it would be spelled with a K, but we're talking with a C here. Mercury is a silver metal, which calls to mind how if Kyurem would have got a Gen 5 game, it would have been Pokemon Gray, which is the color of Mercury. Keldeo. Some similarities to Suicune. First of all, they're both water types with long, flowing hair and have quadruped builds. They're both said to be able to run on water, and they're part of legendary groups. Meloetta. Its shiny area form has cyan hair, and the shiny pirouette form has magenta hair, calling to mind Zacian and Zamazenta, who are named after the words cyan and magenta. Genesect. It seems like it would be a fossil Pokemon, but it isn't, though it is a mythical, so no fossil Pokemons are mythicals. This may be because Plasma only revived a limited number of them and made it unable to breed intentionally, just forcing it to be a mythical Pokemon. instead of just a regular fossil. So yeah, that's gonna end this for now. This one's probably like pushing 40 minutes by this point. So yeah, as I'm recording this, it's not true, but when I post it's gonna be true. The pros and cons of every Pokemon series finally ended. I'm pretty sure that was pretty good for my channel. Got a lot of extra interaction out of that. That was pretty nice, and also that kept me busy for a bit. Like, I literally did over 130 days of that somehow. Anyway, this series is going to continue for a bit. I might start some new short series just to keep posting daily stuff. But anyway, if you like this for now, consider liking, subscribing, and commenting and all that. We'll see what happens from here on out in terms of shorts and stuff. But thanks for watching for now.